Welcome, everyone. I'm Mariquita Solis, the live stream host of all-creatures.org. All-creatures.org was founded in 1998, and it's a leading resource for faith-based animal rights veganism. Led by our executive director, Tams Nicholson, we provide free resources for people seeking to live compassionately towards all creatures. Our extensive library includes vegan sermons and commentaries, animal rights strategies, action alerts, events, and works by various vegan authors. We also sponsor websites for animal rights organizations. Our mission is to unite compassionate individuals worldwide who honor the dignity of all creatures. So make sure you join us every and you never know with these signals. All right, make sure you join us every week because on YouTube, especially because we're going to be changing formats. We're not going to be streaming to Facebook coming up. We've only got a few more streams going to Facebook. So please start watching us on YouTube. So now let's get down to it. I'm very excited to welcome Robert Cheeke today. Robert grew up on a farm in Corvallis, Oregon, where he adopted a vegan lifestyle in 1998 at age 15, weighing just 120 pounds. Today, he's the author of the books Vegan Bodybuilding and Fitness, Shredded, Plant-Based Muscle, the New York Times bestseller, The Plant-Based Athlete, and his latest, The Impactful Vegan, released in 2024. He's often referred to as the Godfather of Vegan Bodybuilding, growing the industry from infancy in 2002 to where it is today. As a natural bodybuilding champion, Robert is considered one of the VegNews magazine's most influential vegan athletes. He tours around the world sharing his story of transformation from a skinny farm kid to a champion vegan bodybuilder. Robert is the founder of Vegan Bodybuilding and Fitness and veganbodybuilding.com. He's a regular contributor to Forks Over Knives, the Center for Nutrition Studies, Plant Powered Athlete, Vegan Strong, and No Meat Athlete. He's a former multi-sport athlete and has followed a plant-based diet for more than 29 years. Robert lives in Colorado with his wife Karen and rescued Chihuahua Ellie. Well, this is exciting. Welcome, Robert, and welcome everyone that's watching us. Please let us know where you're watching from and get your questions up in comments.
Well, thank you so much, Mariquita. Great to be here. And I've actually got Ellie with me. She's just hanging out somewhere in this room here. She's our little 10-year-old plant-based Chihuahua. So she's hanging out here for today's call as well. But thank you so much for having me on. I appreciate it.
Well, I was wondering if we were going to see Ellie. So I'm glad you said that in your
Well, let's see. She's right. She must have heard you because she's right here.
Oh,
Where's Ellie? Hey, look, you're on TV.
What a cutie pie!
Yeah,
Oh.
yeah, and she's fully plant-based and has been the whole time we've had her for about 8.5 years. We got her. She's a rescue. We got her when she was 1.5, and she's 10 years old. And we like to say that she shares a birthday with me. We don't know her birthday, but we like to say that it's in March, just like mine, right, Ellie? So yeah, this is our little plant-based girl.
She's so cute. Oh,
Yeah, thank you. Good job, Ellie. Good job on your appearance today.
Great. Well, Veganology JJ's here saying, great to see you and Robert. And she's saying that Louie looks like Ellie. Louie's my Chihuahua mix, and he's a little bit fatter. But they do look alike.
Well, I might have Ellie just sit on my lap today and just join me. She's got a little bed here down there, but I think she might just sit on my lap under my arms here.
Oh, that's sweet. All right. Well, unfortunately, Louie is not that. He's not going to do that. He likes his own private space on the couch. So anyway, well, welcome JJ and Dylan. Thanks for joining us. And let's get down to our wonderful conversation. I want to hear more about this farm boy experience, Robert. So tell us, what was it like growing up on a farm, and what did y'all think about animals?
Yeah, that was, both my parents come from farming backgrounds. They were raised on farms. They were in the 4-H program. They both went into the animal science department. In fact, my father is a world-renowned expert in animal science. He wrote many books teaching people how to raise animals for food. and that's what he taught at Oregon State University for, I think, exactly 30 years. So I come from a very deep, entrenched farming agriculture background. And so that's how my parents raised us. I've got three siblings, and we grew up on a small family farm. We're right next to a dairy. There's another dairy down the street and some sheep farms and other farms nearby. But we had a small family farm with cows and horses and ponies and goats and turkeys and geese and ducks and chickens and rabbits and guinea pigs and gerbils and guinea fowl. And I'm sure some other animals that I'm missing. I think we had some sheep as well. We basically had most farmed animals except for pigs. And so I would, I raised animals. I raised dairy calves. I raised chickens. I raised rabbits and guinea pigs, and I would show them at the county fair. And then, especially with the chickens and the calves, I would then take them to the auction to be sold, to be turned into someone's food. And so that's the background that I come from. And imagine the scenario where, I'm bottle feeding a baby calf before school. That baby calf is, I'm basically his best friend. It follows me around when I get home from school. Again, I bottle feed again and kind of take care of him. And then I'm the one that decides, okay, it's time for you to go to the auction, and it's time for you to have your life ended and be turned into someone's meal. And so, that didn't sit well with me, but most importantly, it didn't sit well with my older sister. She's the one that inspired me on this vegan path to begin with. So she became a vegetarian at a young age, maybe 8 or 10 years old. She's 2 years older than me. And in the early 90s, she decided to become vegan. And so she organized an animal rights week at our high school. Now, I didn't have any awareness of really what it was or any interest in veganism or anything like that. But I decided that out of respect for my older sister, I would participate. I would go and listen to presentations from some guest speakers. Again, this is back in 1995. So, a lot of black and white videos from PETA, perhaps. And so we watched videos of large-scale animal factory farming, industrialized factory farming, animal testing. Listened to some guest speakers who I think most were probably local. I don't know that people traveled in to speak at this high school back then. And we had vegan food available and literature and conversation, talking about animal rights, talking about animals and veganism. And so I decided on December 8th, 1995, that I would give it a try. I would become vegan for a week. That was my intention. And that week is now turned into almost 30 years, 29 and change, on December 8th, 1995. And so that's how I went about this journey. But I was a 5-sport athlete. I wasn't sure that I could build my body or get enough protein or build muscle as a 5-sport athlete as a teenager, especially with aspirations of getting bigger and stronger. I mean, I was a runner, a soccer player, a basketball player. I wrestled, track and field, did field events and track events, both short distance and long distance. I played tennis. I rode my bike. I mean, I was very, very active and played 5 different sports from high school. And so I decided I was going to have to put it to the test. I was going to have to find out, can I actually do this? And so I did. I discovered what foods to eat. I was an outspoken vegan athlete as a teenager, and I wasn't wearing leather soccer shoes. I was doing things a bit differently back in the, again, mid-90s, before the internet was really a thing that we had at home for most of us. And that started this long 30-year journey that I've been on, which eventually led me to lifting weights, building muscle, becoming a champion vegan bodybuilder, becoming a champion vegan bodybuilder again, writing a book, and then another book, another book, another book, another book, another book, traveling and being on tour for the last 21 years, and talking about how to be an impactful vegan, leading by example. And ultimately, I put on 100 pounds, which I know is not exactly the American dream, but I grew from 120 pounds when I became vegan to a 220-pound champion vegan bodybuilder. So I really tried to unequivocally answer that question about whether you can build muscle without animal protein. I think I did it rather enthusiastically.
Well, that's amazing. And I know what you mean about in 1995, because that's when we first started. My brother showed me Meet Your Meat. And that was a 3-minute clip that was very impactful. Speaking of impactful. So at that point, I became vegetarian, and then I went on the journey to become vegan, So, yeah, it's amazing the way that things have changed, and how wonderful that you had your sister at such a young age to lead you to where you are now. That Wow. And what did your parents think about all this?
Yeah, it was really interesting because my parents weren't sure what to think. I mean, they come from farming background. They understand. My dad's a PhD animal scientist. He knows animal nutrition. He knows human nutrition. Both my parents were concerned about my health, my well-being. Not eating animal protein, not getting these different nutrients from animals, etc. And so they were concerned. That was really their perspective, was concern for my health and wellness, and for my sister. And also my younger brother became vegetarian at age 11, because he basically did everything that I did. He didn't go full vegan, but he became vegetarian. And to this day, Marakita, he is still vegetarian and mostly vegan. In fact, I think he even identifies as vegan now, 30 years later. So he started at age 11, and now he's 41. No, he just turned 42, I think. No, 41. Yeah, he's 41. And he's sustained that for 30 years. My sister has been now vegan for over 30 years, has a vegan family, vegan daughter who's 10 or 11 years old now. She's got a birthday coming up in a few months. And then my other brother followed more in the family footsteps, and he's a farmer, and including a cattle farmer. And his family raises cattle and sells them at the auction, and year round, not just at the county fair, but year round, and sells meat at the farmers market and all of that. So we have a very, very diverse family. You can imagine back in the 1990s what holiday gatherings were like, with two vegans, especially animal rights vegans, outspoken animal rights vegans, one vegetarian, two animal scientists, and a farmer. That should be maybe my 7th book or my 8th book. I could write about that. In fact, I should sometime write about that family dynamic, because I mean, it's been 30 years of navigating those different intricacies within that family matrix, which had ups and downs. There was plenty of conflict for a while. I mean, this juxtaposition that I like to share sometimes, of the bumper stickers on the vehicles of my siblings. My sister had this, must have been 1970s Volkswagen bus, back with, it was really kind of cool vehicle to have back then, painted with the Beatles and sunflowers for the headlights, and, all decked out. And she had a bumper sticker from Farm Sanctuary. It said, if you love animals called pets, why do you eat animals called dinner? My brother had a big, either Ford or Chevy pickup truck with a gun rack and a bumper sticker that says, enjoy a juicy steak tonight. And these were parked next to each other. So if you love animals called pets, why do you eat animals called dinner? Right next to enjoy a juicy steak tonight and cowboys do it in 8 seconds, rodeo.
Yeah.
That's what it was like. And so, my brother and I didn't get along very well in high school or in the years after. We're totally fine now. And, his wife prepares amazing vegan food and vegan meals for holidays for us, even though that totally goes against their philosophy of raising animals and distributing animal products and byproducts, and raising their kids who are fully farmers. I mean, these little boys, 8 and 10, I think. I've got 5 nieces and nephews, and they're all having birthdays now, so it's hard to keep up with it. I think they're about, oh, no, sorry, they're 10 and 12 now. They're 10 and 12. They wear belt buckles, cowboy hats, pocket knives, on them. They they're full on farmers and raise cows and all this kind of stuff. So you know, it was interesting back then because I felt like maybe my parents weren't as supportive as they could have been in those early days because they were just concerned and they questioned, I think, the viability of a plant based diet or vegan lifestyle. But they've been totally supportive of my work since. I mean, even, I've got a quote from my dad in The Impactful Vegan, in my latest book. My dad has a couple, actually, numerous quotes in here, and a little bit of stories where he's very supportive of the vegan lifestyle these days. So yeah, it's been a long time coming and a lot of shifts and changes along the way, but um, we're in a good place now as a family and understanding. And of course, it's been decades, so we all know kind of who we are and where we stand and what our priorities are these days.
Well, that's amazing. I also work with people with relationships. A lot of angry vegans that are, and sad vegans that really don't know how to navigate interpersonal relationships, with family. And so this is a wonderful example of how you all are able to get along and you respect each other. You might not agree with everything everyone's doing, but you I mean, it sounds like you put family first. I mean, you value the relationships and you're going to tend to those, somehow navigate where everyone is at peace.
Yeah, and there's also, something to be said for the fact that oftentimes the people who are closest to us are the hardest to influence. It's very hard to influence our parents or our children or our siblings. And yes, my sister had an influence on me, and yes, I had an influence on my brother, but that's not the norm for everybody. Just because that's my situation or my unique um, upbringing or just how I became vegan overnight, that's not common. Most people take smaller incremental steps uh, for long lasting sustainability within veganism, where they ease into it sometimes. Um, same with family. I recognize that it's very difficult to persuade my parents, who are now in their 80s, who have lived a certain way for their entire lives. It's hard to persuade someone, maybe they were in their 60s, 50s at the time that I became vegan. That's still a long time to be doing something to have a worldview shift. It's difficult. And same with my brother and in-laws and other relatives who are products of their environments. It's very hard to persuasively and effectively create that change. Now, some people have been able to do it. The Esselstyn family has been able to do it. The T. Colin Campbell family has been able to do it. But these are typically exceptions, and that's why we know the these stories so well of like the entire Esselstyn family is all plant based. All of the Campbells are plant based. Yeah, we get it. Um, but that's not how it is for most of us. And so I look for other ways to be an impactful vegan. I look for people who are already interested. They're either into diet culture, um, in fitness culture, and looking for different ways of achieving results. They're vegetarian, already concerned about animal welfare or about the environment, and veganism is just one step further. They are someone who cares about climate or the environment and resources, and so they're already naturally looking at the use of resources and production of animal agriculture, and could easily be persuaded. They're people who already live in a vegetarian type society, perhaps like in certain religious Adventist health perspectives. People in India, people in other cultures, sometimes in Buddhist certain areas of Buddhism, um, where you can find people who are uh, more likely to change their worldview to the tenets of veganism and adopt those. So I don't get hung up on whether my family is fully on board or not, because I have strategic ways to reduce animal suffering in the larger scope, in the bigger picture, in the greater world, through my books, through my public speaking, through all my appearances like this, through my tours, which I've been doing for 21 years now. In fact, I'll be on tour later this month and next month and the next month after that. And I was on tour last month as well on a vegan cruise. And, so I find ways to amplify veganism and promote it without disrupting a family dynamic where people are already resistant to change. Like, why create greater friction or more of a barrier with immediate family or close family, if they're very likely or statistically unwilling to come over to your side of this ethical vantage point. So I have a fine family dynamic now, and I just work on all my other aspects of vegan outreach, and I find a lot of effectiveness in that.
Well, I really like that you're sharing this perspective, because I know a lot of people beat themselves up. I mean, they think, if I can't change my family, well, my gosh, I'm worthless, or this means this, but I honestly, that for my family, I'm very blessed to have my brother who started the journey, and then his girlfriend, and then the rest is like, my boyfriend is not fully vegan, and I say that very with confidence, and it's nothing against me. I'm not going to hang my head in shame. I'm going to just say, I mean, he does his best, and I'm not, I mean, that's not an excuse. That's because I know some things are a struggle for him. So, and then my sister is just totally the opposite of veganism. So I have to just allow that. I mean, I know if I open my mouth, I'm just going to make it worse. So I have to, realize that to be impactful with her, it's just to be just for her to see, like you're saying, be the example. I mean, she's not in good health, and she actually has asked my brother for help, health wise. So there's the little part that, the opening. So, I mean, it's with him, not necessarily me. I have to understand that. So it's very important, like that you are sharing, to allow our families to be where they are, and also that you're looking for the low hanging fruit.
Yeah, exactly. And that's how I describe it in the book too. You do need to look for the low hanging fruit, because there's suffering happening every second of every day around the world on industrialized factory farms globally. And we could do something about that by leading by positive example, by changing supply and demand, by getting legislative changes passed, getting laws passed, by food technology innovation, and changing the types of foods that are available in the public school system and in restaurants and available to populations around the world, and even changing the way that meat is made without using animals, using either plant-based proteins or precision fermentation or mycelium or cultivated meat from animal cells without having to raise actual animals. There's all kinds of ways to push this movement forward, and we certainly don't have to beat ourselves up for not being able to influence those that we care about. That's more of a personal bias. That's even almost like an ego thing. Like, I want to be able to have influence on this person because I care about them. And maybe it's genuine, like care about their health, like they're in poor health. I know a plant-based diet could help them, that kind of thing. But that's difficult to do. And when we look at it, looking at an animal suffering perspective, we've got to look at where the opportunities are, how good those opportunities could be, the impact those opportunities could have on the most number of animals, and continue to lead by example. Just a quick example here, I'm the fittest person in my family as this champion athlete, and I've also been vegan for just about 30 years. Maybe there's a coincidence there, maybe not. I've written all these different books. I've been endorsed by all these different PhD experts in nutrition and in science and in all kinds of different areas, endorsed by all these medical doctors, all these registered dietitians, all these champion and world-class and even Olympic athletes who are plant-based. And so I lead by example within my friend group, my family group, the community that I'm in. I think that's the best way that we can all do this. The best way that we can all represent veganism is to lead by example. Even with my little girl here, for example, I read something recently. I can't remember exactly what it was, but one of the largest areas of animal consumption is through pet food. Yet dogs can easily thrive on a plant-based diet. She has been great, and she followed a plant-based diet now for 8.5 years. We had another little one. This is actually, today is the anniversary, 1 year anniversary of his passing. Our little boy, Benny, passed away April 3rd of last year, 2024, and he was almost 19 years old, and he followed a plant-based diet for 12 or 13 years. We got him when he was 5 years old, and he adopted a plant-based diet shortly after that and made it to 18 and a half, which most dogs don't even get near that. And he was doing fantastically well on a plant-based diet, just as little Ellie is. And so that's another way to reduce animal suffering on a large scale. Especially there's this unknown, almost like within the mainstream public, where they call this like this yuck factor or gross factor, afraid of plant-based meats, or afraid of cultivated meats, or afraid of, even though they eat meat that literally comes from a slaughterhouse, that literally comes from animals often pumped full of all kinds of antibiotics and drugs and supplements and all kinds of things, raised in horrible conditions, and then slaughtered and turned into food. They have no problem eating that. Hot dogs, burgers, nuggets, literal wings that used to be on a bird, but they're afraid of meat made from cells, from animal cells. Are you kidding me? But that is a great opportunity to use that cellular made cultivated meat for pet food. Dogs are less discerning. They don't have a yuck factor. They don't have a gross factor. They're not worried that, they don't prefer their animals come from industrialized factory farms and slaughterhouses, and they're afraid of cultivated meat from animal cells. They'll eat whatever it is. And so if we can, even if we changed that component and had cultivated animal meat for pet food for mainstream dogs all over the world, that would be significant. That would be huge. And so that's something else we can really take into consideration. It's not just our own actions, but it's the food that our pets eat, and the food that so often goes to waste. There's a stat that I give in my book. It's really disheartening. There's something like 27% of all animal meat produced is not consumed, produced for humans, is not consumed by humans. It expires. It's poor cuts of meat that people don't want. Discoloration. It gets spoiled during transportation through refrigeration and freezing mishaps. It doesn't get purchased within a certain amount of time. There's all these reasons that nearly a third of all meat produced by humans is not consumed by humans. Look at the waste on, go to any buffet, restaurant, family diner, maybe fast food, cruise ship buffets, all this food people put on their plates and don't eat. Now, these are not calories being consumed. That means these animals were slaughtered for unnecessary reasons. They didn't need to be. By the hundreds of millions, or even maybe by the billions of animals that are slaughtered but not used in any kind of way, it renders their slaughter, a useless process. And so we've got to look at that kind of thing too. Food waste, why it's being wasted, and all sorts of other all sorts of other things, from government subsidies to farming practices and all of that, to create some really positive changes and innovation in the food that is made, the food that is consumed, and the food that is available, especially when there are literally 1 billion humans right now who are going to go to bed this evening not knowing where their next meal is coming from. 1 billion people who are living in that level of poverty, mostly in the global south, Africa and sub-Saharan Africa, numerous Asian countries, Central and South American countries, and of course, even in the Western and developed world, there are many, many people to the tune of 1 billion who are unfed. Yet in the very developed Western world, especially the United States and similar countries, we are overfed and undernourished because the food we eat is highly processed, animal protein and processed junk ingredients, that we're not getting real nourishment, and then we have this obesity epidemic and all these other problems that are associated with it.
And that's so interesting that you say that, because I Louis is plant based also, and I make his food. Well, if I give him a dog biscuit that's from the store, and immediately his eyes start running. Anything processed will start his eyes probably within 10 minutes running. But when he's eating the clean food, the fruits and the vegetables, and, he eats a lot of beans, chickpeas, and then I supplement his food, but that doesn't cause this runny eye. But it's amazing that processed food immediately does it. And he goes crazy for processed foods too. Of course, every now and then I'm no saint here and I don't eat perfectly, but when I do have something that's, gone out, and he knows, and he just is like on me, I want some of that, that addiction, which I'm being fueled by that addiction of that food, this food that isn't natural, but it's pulling me, it pulls him in, right, too. And it's incredible.
Yeah. You want to know some of the history behind that?
Yes.
So I'll give you a quick overview. So protein was discovered in 1838. A Swedish scientist and Dutch chemist, I believe, first discovered this macronutrient protein in 1838. And protein's very, very important. It's the only macronutrient that we can't store. We can store fat, which we do all around our organs, adipose tissue. It's all throughout our body. We can store carbohydrate in the form of glycogen. It's in our muscles. It's in our body. It's stored energy. Cannot store protein. So that makes it very, very essential. It's an essential nutrient that has to be consumed daily. And so late 1800s, it was basically determined that this is the stuff of life itself. Like this is what our hair is made out of, what our nails are made out of, hormone functions. It's how we maintain skeletal muscle. It's how we repair muscle tissue when it's damaged through exercise. It's how we grow. It's part of all these body functions. So protein is massively important. But we also discovered in the late 1800s that we could start fencing and farming these large animals, these large herbivores that create a lot of muscle tissue, like cows and sheep and goats and chickens to some degree. They're a smaller animal, but you can still grow them to be pretty big. And that we could get protein from animals, especially if we confine them and farm them and have them reproduce and grow and create this edible source. And so it wasn't until the 1920s that we started realizing, well, chickens can grow pretty quickly. I mean, within a few weeks, 7 weeks, they'll be essentially full grown and we can slaughter them then. And they don't take up a whole lot of space, but they provide lots of meals. Let's focus on these small birds and eat those. So 1920s, chickens were the animal that were farmed the most. Concentrated, industrialized, or early industrialized factory farms. Also, around 1933 is when the United States government passed this agricultural act to give farmers subsidies to raise animals, other animals, cows that grow lots of protein, lots of edible flesh. And so in the 1930s, we created these subsidies, and then we came out of the, after that, we came out of the post-World War era where we needed to rebuild societies and we came out of the Great Depression and all these different time frames where food was scarce, and realized that if we focus on protein to grow and grow big, strong muscles, we need to raise lots of animals, keep the price low, give subsidies to farmers, and they can grow more animals that we can eat and kind of rebuild this society focused on protein coming from animals. And then we had some food technology innovation. 1945, we invented the microwave, where you could then, after a long day of farming and all that, you could just heat something up quickly, heat up your leftover chicken leg or turkey leg or lamb, baby sheep, whatever it is, and eat that in a way that could cook it really quickly. And then around 1950s, 1960s, we had a cultural shift. We had TV dinners, we had fast food restaurants. It became this social thing that we had televisions and we can use a microwave to heat up a TV dinner and have a social time eating animals for protein at home. But also, if we wanted to venture out and be social, we could go to one of these fast food restaurants that were popping up, mostly serving, you guessed it, chickens. Chickens in all kinds of different ways. And then, of course, the invention of the hamburger and the burger and all of that. And so then we get the 1960s, 1970s, 1980s rolling around. And during this time, it's also very important to recognize the growth of the processed food movement. Cereals, crackers, chips, packaged foods, processed foods that started to dominate the grocery store aisles, gas station, convenience stores, airport, little kiosks, all over the place. We had this growth of processed foods. And when you look at the average American body weight in the 1960s compared to the 1980s, it grew by about 20 pounds for both men and women. Women, I think, maybe closer to 15 pounds. And then when you look from the 1980s to the early 2000s, or actually, sorry, the 1980s until present, it grew by another 20 pounds approximately. So, for example, men weighed about 160 pounds in 1960s. Women were 140 or so. And then by the 1980s, men were 181 pounds on average, the average American male. And now the average American is 200 pounds. Average American male is 200 pounds. And women went from 140 to 160 to now over 170. The reason that's significant is because that coincided with the adoption of an animal protein rich and processed food diet, which has now led, and this could blow your mind, this has now led to the average adult American consuming per day 3,540 calories on average. Many of us grew up with this 2,000 calorie diet, or we look at dietary recommendations based on a 2,000 calorie diet. Not anymore, not in 2025, not today. The average adult American consumes 3,540 calories. Why? Because 85% of their diet is processed foods and animal protein. About 55% processed foods, 30% animal protein, and only 15% all fruits, vegetables, legumes, grains, nuts, and seeds. What has that led to? It's led to 73.6% of the American population currently overweight, 42.5% of the American population currently obese, and 1 in 2, I'm talking every other person. Go to a big football stadium with 100,000 people, 80,000 people, half of them. Go to the shopping mall. Go to Costco. Go to grocery store. 1 in 2, every other person today is going to have cancer, diabetes, heart disease, hypertension, or some other diet related degenerative disease that's significant, not just obesity, not just being overweight, but that obesity leads to the development of diabetes or cancer or hypertension or heart disease or stroke or cardiac issues or joint pain, or perhaps even contributing to the most expensive disease in America, which is dementia or Alzheimer's. There's all these different factors. And so how do we get there? We know based on surveys, 80% of Americans claim to eat fast food once per week. 37% of Americans eat fast food every single day. 20% of Americans eat at least one meal a day in a car, which is often indicative of a fast food meal. And we spend 97% of our time indoors, not gardening, not walking, not exercising outdoors, not riding a bike. Now, we might still go to a gym that's indoors. I'll be going to the gym later today. But in general, we don't move. We sit all day. We sit at our computer. We sit on the couch. We sit in our car. We sit on public transportation. We lay down in a bed. We sit at a table to eat. We don't move anymore. And so that combination of the historical significance of animal protein in the human diet, which made sense early on, but completely got blown out of proportion, especially I can go on and on, but about the package that we eat protein in. Most of us eat protein in the form of animal protein. What comes with that? No one just eats a piece of animal protein. It's usually in the form of a burger covered in oil with dairy-based cheese, with a dairy-based dressing, with a processed bun, with butter on it that's 4,000 calories per pound, just like oil is. It's on top of pizza, which is bread, which is highly calorie-rich, processed, 2,300 calories a pound, smothered in cheese, another 1,700 calories a pound, covered in oil, 4,000 calories a pound. It's a piece of bread with cheese, oil, and meat on it, and that's how we consume it. Or in any other version that we tend to consume, deep fried nuggets, fried wings, fried whatever. It's no wonder we can't lose weight. We can't maintain a healthy weight. It's no wonder we have heart disease. We have high blood pressure. We have blockages in arteries. We have damaged artery cells. We have plaque buildup. We have cardiac issues. We have obesity running rampant. It's because of our obsession with animal protein and the way that we consume protein, which, by the way, I haven't even mentioned. It has class 1 or class 2A carcinogens, which means it's very closely linked to the development of cancer, especially reproductive cancers, just as much as smoking and lung cancer. The association of processed meats that are the class 1 carcinogens, that's just as common with reproductive cancers in men and women. So it's very problematic. And then on top of that, you add in the fact that our modern conveniences mean that we don't move anymore. We have technology like we're doing today. We can sit here and talk via video. We can talk, through our smartphone and not have to get up and do anything. And so that's led us to a point where we're in this health crisis in the Western world. We're in an industrialized animal agriculture crisis where we're expected another 2 billion humans by 2050, be 10 billion of us. And they're also expecting 62% to 242% more animal agriculture between now and then, because 98 to 99% of people are not plant-based or vegan collectively on a global scale, which means 99% of the next 2 billion people are going to eat animals. That's a whole lot of animal agriculture we've got to do. So, and we're running out of space for it. We're running out of, an ethical yardstick is coming short here, where we've created a problem and we've got to change it. And there are plenty of solutions. I wrote an entire book about it. And I think, we adopt many of those strategies, we will start making some progress.
Very true. And we're very disconnected from nature, like you said. We don't go outside. I mean, we don't even. I was just thinking as I was walking yesterday through. I was walking through the a little trail and thinking how we're we are natural beings and we've completely tried to live in an unnatural world. You know, our world is so set up now that it's unnatural, and we're really we can't thrive like this, and we're not thriving, you know. And I saw that an ad for, or just it was a new something on the news about, oh, this pill's going to take away cholesterol and everything. What good is that? I mean, if you take away cholesterol and you're still eating the same way, then it's going to show up in other forms. And this is so unnatural. We've completely turned away from Mother Nature. And oh, it's very disheartening, and wondering why people can't sleep at night and why they're so stressed out. They've turned away from animals, knowing that these are connected to us. These are living beings, right? And we've lost sight of that as well.
Yeah, we and I know it's cliche to say, but we live in an artificial society. I mean, we like you just described. I mean, we have everything from artificial light. I mean, I have these ring lights in front of me. You can see them in my glasses if I turn my head a certain way, right? We've got artificial lights, artificial environments, artificial ways of doing everything, and our food is artificial, and that's not a provocative statement by design. That's the truth. We use all kinds of science and technology to make artificial colors, artificial flavors, extract all these different things, take the fat out of it, take the protein out of it, take the carbohydrate out of it, add extra sugar, add extra this, add things that do make it addicting where you can't stop. Especially sugar, oil, and salt. I mean, just human nature is that it's very hard to overcome the temptation of artificial sugar. It's just so addicting that we just have to have more of it. And of course, oil just leads us wanting more, and then salt, keeps calling us back. And so that combined with where all the money is in marketing, pushing these things like chips and soda, which are some of the most nutrient deficient foods on the planet. You can't get much lower than the nutritional return on investment than chips and soda. Yet they're some of the most popular foods. And guess what? They're also some of the cheapest foods. I mean, you can get a 2 liter of soda for a couple dollars or something like that. You can get a big bag of chips for a couple dollars, loaded in calories. And these are calories that compound over time. And we're not, we know some of these stats, like there's 64 times more antioxidants in plant foods than in animal foods. Dietary cholesterol is only found in animal foods. Fiber is only found in plants. And you look at the numbers, 97% of Americans don't eat enough fiber. Most of us don't eat enough antioxidants and vitamins and minerals. And so that's the number one supplement in America is a multivitamin, because people aren't eating real fruits and vegetables and things that will actually provide that naturally. And we're subjected to, the television marketing of not only consumable goods and foods, but I was watching basketball last night, one of my guilty pleasures. I love watching basketball. And all these pharmaceutical commercials were coming on TV, with all these side effects, including death and including losing limbs and including, it just sounded insane. If you were just to hear the list of potential side effects, it was just this unbelievable concoction and recipe for early mortality. But it was lots of singing and dancing.
I know. I was just going to say that, singing and dancing.
Yeah, singing and dancing to take this pharmaceutical drug. Yet the side effects could kill you or lose your limbs or cause blindness or cause you to die prematurely. But because we're not willing, as a society, we're just unwilling to eat healthier. We're unwilling to exercise. We've made it very clear that we want to conserve our energy, sit on the couch, be entertained by stimulation of television and the internet, and that's who we've decided we wanted to become. And that's there's repercussions to that. This is the first time in 100 years, first time in 100 years that human life expectancy in America has dropped by 2 years. Now COVID had something to do with that for sure, but we went from average age of 78 all the way down to 76. That's the biggest jump in 100 years. And also, it's worth mentioning. And I know it's a little bit depressing, but the statistics or data also reveal that we tend to have what they deem as like a low quality of life. Again, overweight, joint pain, one or two or three major diseases, lots of medications, inability to move very easily, all types of things during our final 10 years. Yet the average American, if I understand it, retires closer to age 65, but by 66, they started decline in health for the next 10 years, which that sounds unbelievably depressing to me, that you get 1 year of retirement before the next 10 years are problematic because of health conditions that in many, many cases can statistically be reduced through diet and lifestyle interventions. Simply having more salads, eating more fruit, walking more. But people don't want to do that because we've come to a place where we want to do the easiest thing, exert the least amount of the effort in anything that we do, whether that's our ways of making income or money, or our ways of losing weight. We'd rather take a pill than exercise. Who wants to exercise? And I mean that seriously. Right. Nobody wants to. It takes work. I mean, my muscles are sore. I've got pretty big muscles. They're sore from yesterday's. There we are. They're sore from yesterday's workout. But I worked out for 90 minutes in the gym because I wanted to. I walked, was it 10 miles yesterday? I walked 45,000 steps over the course of 2 days. That was 20 something miles. Yesterday was 14,000 steps. But that means I'm going to be in good shape, and I'm going to be able to write books about it. I'm going to be able to speak about it. I'm going to be able to, do the muscle flexing on camera, and I'm going to be able to lead by example. Most people are not willing to do that, including my friends, family, loved ones, my neighbors. Most people we know, that's too much work. I want to eat the heavily processed, yellow number 6, red number 40, blue number, whatever it is, artificially super concentrated food that I can just throw in the microwave, sit on the couch and watch whatever show that I want with unlimited entertainment, and then go to bed and do it all over again. But if we can embrace aspects of the blue zones and move naturally, it doesn't even have to be going to the gym. I used to hike 4 days a week for 3 hours at a time. It doesn't have to be a gym. If we can move and do it every single day, I'm talking at least 10,000 steps, but why not strive for 15,000 or 20,000? What does that mean? It means more dog walks. It means more time out in nature. It means going on a walk with a friend, a neighbor, a partner, a loved one, a spouse. It means, going for a hike and seeing things you wouldn't normally see. It means being active, getting out there and doing something, which is good for your mind. It's good for your memory. It's good for your creativity. It's good for your mood. It's good for, your skin. Get out in the sun, do something. If we can change some of these things, embrace these blue zone aspects of eating mostly plants or fully plant-based diet, or embrace veganism and care about the animals and care about the environment, care about the resources, care about clean air and water and rivers and streams and oceans, care about the fish that are consumed at the highest amount, chickens that are consumed the next most commonly consumed animal. Care about these things and simply take action with exercise, with dietary choices, with leading by example, showing that you can build your body, you can burn fat, you can have energy, you can do all these things without animal protein and reduce the risk of needing to be on these pharmaceutical drugs that have these very bad side effects. That's, to me, a life well lived. And I think I provide a lot of solutions. I mean, I have this other book. It's New York Times bestseller, The Plant-Based Athlete. It gives people the blueprint, how to, how to get enough protein, how to create a meal plan, how to find recipes, how to not be weak, how to be strong, on a plant-based diet. We we answer all of those things, and I do that in literary format and through these interviews like this. And so, I hope that I can provide some solutions for people, some inspiration, some motivation, some aspiration. And if you just do these things, put in the work, commit to it, show up every day, and eat plants, show up every day and exercise. That's a step toward a brighter future for all of us, and less reliance on animals in the food system, less reliance on the things that pollute the environment, less reliance on pharmaceutical drugs, and more reliance on our own intrinsic and inherent ability to nourish and nurture ourselves through good food, exercise, and getting outside and moving.
Yes, amen to that. I mean, we've got to keep moving. That's so important. And yes, I mean, everything you're saying is very important. Um, but what was I going to ask you? I know we only have a little bit of time. I don't want to overstep your time, but what's an animal maybe that you grew up on the farm with that that you really had a very deep impact, or is there a little story you could tell us about one of those animals?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Today, I think I'll tell you the story of a dairy calf named Tim. He was born on the dairy right next to us, that bordered our fence, and he was born bow-legged, crippled, I guess you could say, and he was just going to be discarded. He's not going to live a long, healthy life, perhaps. The idea was just to toss him out to in a basically join the dead pile of cows, which is a real thing. There was a dead pile on the dairy farm near us, and so the owner of the farm, named Tim, which is where the calf got his name. He asked my dad, "Would one of your kids, because my parents had 4 kids, would one of your kids want this kind of rejected calf as a project, as a pet, 4-H, whatever?" And so I got him. So Tim was my little buddy, with his little bow legs. He couldn't walk properly, his little crippled little calf, and I felt for him. He was my buddy, and so he's someone that I would bottle feed before school, someone that I would hang out with, kind of like a dog perhaps, and watch him grow But as I alluded to early on, as was part of the nature of being on a farm and raising animals, Tim unfortunately had his fate determined by me or my parents, or by all of us, that it was time to send him to the auction to be turned into someone's meal. And so that's unfortunately where he went. But for that time, it reminded me of giving that animal a chance, at least for a while. I wasn't vegan at the time, but he otherwise would have been killed right away. But I don't remember exactly. I was younger. I don't remember exactly how long we had Tim, how long he lived, but he at least got to, enjoy some good time with me, during that time. And I think that probably, on some level, emotionally impacted me when I did become vegan a few years later, and I just had that empathy for animals like Tim and others who were just discarded because of who they are or how they were born, or because of their view as being used as a commodity, only in utility. Like, who cares if he's got deformity or, struggles with walking, he still deserves, to live a life free of fear, pain, and suffering as much as possible, like we all do, right? But it's because we view them as commodities and as a form of utility to turn their bodies into edible calories for us, that we make these decisions. That if an animal is crippled in some sort of way, or deformed wing or whatever, that, well, we may as well just turn them into food because um, their life is not important or useful to us based on the utility that we see them. Where we would not view that with disabled humans that have any kind of physical deformity. We wouldn't value their lives less. In fact, we would make sure we have ramps for wheelchair access. We would have accessible rooms for all sorts of different um, challenges that some people may have inherently. And so it just, that example with Tim just reminded me um, to view animals as individuals, and just to recognize that they all have their own desires, mostly to live. That's why I love that expression, just to live and let live, where nobody wants to die. No animal wants to die. Um, and even if we have different aspirations or different different intellectual capacities, some animals are smarter than others. Humans and primates are smarter than certain animals. Dogs and pigs are smarter than others. That's all somewhat irrelevant when you look at intrinsic value, um, and an animal's desire to simply live, and not live a life of suffering, if at all possible. And I think that's important for us to remember. And it's one of the reasons. Excuse me. It's one of the reasons why I put a hen on the cover of The Impactful Vegan, because it takes about 155 individual chickens to make the same edible meat as one cow. So you're
Mm.
talking about over 150 to 1 ratio of individual lives who want to live. And so if we can do our part to reduce animal suffering, if we can reduce the suffering of the smaller animals that are consumed to the highest numbers, chickens are somewhere around, I think, 60 billion of the 90 billion land animals. The chickens are the vast majority of the animals consumed. Fish are the highest, they're in the trillions. Shrimp, number one, and then fish like tuna and others. But for land animals, chickens are by far the most commonly consumed. They got a head start back in the 1920s, but they're also smaller, and they only take 6 weeks to be fully grown, with the Cornish cross breed that is the one that most people eat. Whereas cows take a year or more, and they eat a lot of food. They require a lot of water, require a lot of resources. They're bigger. They need more space, more land. So if we can reduce the suffering for these smaller animals that are consumed in the largest quantities and endure the most suffering, I think that's a very noble approach that we can take. And you can do that through donating to effective animal charity organizations. You can do it by obviously avoiding um, the restaurants and eating those foods, and encouraging others to leave chickens off their plate. There's many ways to do it. But I think it's just, again, looking at individual animal value, and that they all have their own interest, and just to, let them explore their own lives.
Right. Well, that's very true, and I love the story about Tim. It reminds me, but I mean, it reminds me that I've been hearing the stories of people that have seen the spirit of their animal companions leave, and the spirit, they see it. So that's what that's what I have to hold on to, is those stories um, of the spirit leaving the body, and people that I know have seen it, so I believe it. So knowing that, I mean, what I believe is that Tim's spirit is just joyful and at peace. And that, what a joy, and what a beautiful blessing it is that you were able to nurture him and love him and give him that, that feeling of someone who is loved, and you could recognize that in him. And that's a true blessing. And that when he passed, now that he's, peaceful and in the most, I mean, that's the way I believe, in the most beautiful place there is. I mean, still with us and still having an effect on us as you tell his story. What a great legacy that Tim has shared with us. And you, thank you, Robert. And wow, I'm very touched by that.
Well, thank you, and thank you for sharing that perspective as well. It's amazing what shapes us and what influences us and leads us down the road to make the decisions that we make. And it is nice to reflect on those stories and those examples and those individuals that impacted us and led us to the people that we became today. So yeah, thank you for letting me share that story.
Sure. Well, I want to remind everyone to visit us at www.all-creatures.org and help support this program and others by making a one-time or reoccurring donation of any amount. And y'all remember that we're going to be changing to YouTube, no more Facebook in the future weeks. So please start watching on YouTube, y'all. And Robert, let us know, show us your books again and tell us where we can get them.
Yeah, so The Impactful Vegan is the newest one. It's also, I believe, the best book that I've ever written. It's so good. It has only perfect 5-star reviews on Amazon in every country that I've looked. Like not even a single 4-star review. And I spent years writing it. I interviewed 40 world-renowned experts in veganism for this book. It's all about doing the most good to help animals. The Impactful Vegan, you can find it on Amazon. You can find it in local bookstores. Amazon's probably the best place. It's on sale right now as well. But you can also go to your Barnes & Noble and they might have it there. I've certainly seen it in Barnes & Noble. The Plant-Based Athlete is a New York Times bestseller. I co-authored with my friend Matt Frazier. This book is much more readily available. Not only is it on Amazon and pretty much every bookstore because of its popularity as a major New York Times bestseller, it is in, ready for this? It is in 9 languages worldwide. So you can find it in Chinese and Korean and Italian, German, Spanish, Polish, Hungarian. I didn't say Italian already, Thai, all kinds of languages, which is really, really cool. Polish, if I didn't say that, I don't know. There's 9 of them. So yeah, the Plant-Based Athlete is available everywhere. And it's actually been the #1 best-selling vegan book on Amazon Kindle for like 3 months in a row. It's really cool. It's been #1, #2, or #3 on the bestseller list every single week for 3 or 4 months straight on Amazon Kindle. But of course, there's the hardcover. I have the paperback version. I don't have any with me. They're somewhere else right now. I just moved. I moved like last week, so I'm in a brand new place, still unpacking. I have just things all over the floor here, boxes everywhere. But anyway, The Impactful Vegan and The Plant-Based Athlete are the latest 2 books. I've written a bunch of others too. And I highly encourage you to check those out on Amazon or wherever you buy books, either in person or online at bookstores everywhere. And I greatly appreciate the support. The books are very, very good. And they provide tremendous solutions for a more peaceful world. So thank you.
All right, everybody, get out there and get your books. And I want to thank JJ and Dylan and everybody else watching behind the scenes and watching the replay. And thank you so much, Robert. This has been very inspiring and also opened up a lot of ideas how people that maybe might not know how to take action are able to take action in other ways, because some people are afraid to it's not necessarily afraid, but being out there and speaking is not their thing. So writing a book or working on legislation and all these other ideas that you've offered are very much needed. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Marquita. I appreciate the opportunity. And yes, I include entire chapters of ideas of the ways to use your own skills, talents, resources, other strengths, network, generosity, and volunteering to help animals. And you don't even have to have a special set of skills or talents. There's plenty of things that anyone can do to very effectively help animals. And I dedicate a bunch of chapters to doing exactly that in The Impactful Vegan. So So thank you for that opportunity, and I hope people will check it out. But most importantly, I hope they will take action to help animals. And I'm grateful for everyone who helps joining me in being an impactful vegan.
Well, thank you, Robert. All right, everybody, run out and get the book, and we'll all be impactful vegans. And I hope everyone lives in peace. Thank you all again. Thank you, Robert. Thank you, JJ and Dylan and everyone else. All right, bye bye, y'all.
Thank you.